All right, folks. Rambam actually coming to the conclusion of the eighth book. This is just uncanny of how, you know, the book of Avodah, which means divine service in the Holy Temple. And we're learning the laws of Me'ilah. Me'ilah is the laws of misappropriation of holy things. In other words, if you use things inappropriately, that thank you, Shmuel. Right? If we misappropriate things, in other words, if it's sanctified and holy, so it can only be used for sanctified, holy purposes. Can't use it personally. If you do use it personally, as we've learned in certain instances, the law would be the law of Me'ilah, which means if you did it unintentionally, you would have to pay back what you used, plus add a fifth, plus you would have to bring a korban Asham, bring a guilt offering. You'd have to bring. Tim, if you can let it, thanks. You'd have to bring a guilt offering on top of that. If you did it intentionally, then there could be lashes with witnesses. Okay, chapter 5. The prohibition against Mila. By the way, tomorrow we finish this book. And we start the book of Karbonos, of sacrifices, which will learn the laws of Pesach sacrifice. Okay, so the prohibition against Me'ilah applies whether one consecrated an article that is fit to be used for the improvement of the temple for that purpose, example, a stone or a beam, consecrates an article fit for the altar for the improvement of the altar, right? Or sheep or doves, or consecrates an article that is fit to be used for the improvement of the temple for the altar, a stone or a beam, or consecrates for either of these purposes an article that is not fit for either of these purposes. He consecrates chickens, right? Chickens can't be used, right? Vinegar, brine, or land, right? They can't use that in the temple. Right? What they do with that is they take it and then exchange it, people buy it and they get the money, and then the money is used for temple needs, right? But the point he wants to say over here is that if I had a bottle of olive oil and I want to consecrate it, right? So I say, okay, I'm sanctifying this, consecrating this for the temple. Well, guess what? It's consecrated. It's got a holiness to it now that you can't use it. And if you use it, then you would be obliged the law of Me'ilah because it's misappropriation of a consecrated article, right? And all it is it's some olive oil, and just because I consecrated it, well, yeah, now you can't, right?
Same with the sheep. Once you say this sheep is for the temple, that's it.
That's for sure, even more so, because a sheep could be used. The point is, your vinegar can't be used, right? Even that, right? You might say, well, that's only the value of it, but not the thing itself, right? No? Right? So this applies even to consecrated dung heap filled with fertilizer or dust or ash. Like, what value does that have, right? It doesn't matter. You've consecrated it for the temple. It doesn't belong to you now, right? All of these instances of prohibition against meal applies from the time that the entity was consecrated until it was redeemed, if it is an article fit to be redeemed, right? So if it was, a dunghill, imagine, fertilizer, right? A dunghill. And you consecrated that. Pretty smelly, holy dung. That's called holy dung. Why not? Why not? Why not?
It's done.
So again, the temple treasury is not going to use the dung because they have no purpose for it. They will sell it, right? They will sell it and get the money, but until it's redeemed. That's what we just finished off in the halacha, right? Until it's redeemed, if you use that, if you went and used it fertilizer and you went to put into your garden to make your vegetables grow better, misappropriation, that's a law of Me'ilah, right?
So then if you consecrate it, that means you're like you're committing to selling it and giving the money?
No, that the treasury will do.
Oh, they'll take it.
They'll do that. How they'll send somebody there to from the treasury to evaluate it and then whatever and put it up. Yankel has some dung. Now, obviously, what they're going to get, they're not getting best price for it, right? They're not going to get top of the line price necessarily, right? Because I'm going to buy it from my neighbor if I need dung, right? If I need to put that as fertilizer, I'm going to buy it from my neighbor, and maybe this guy, there's no one around him, and no one's going to buy it so quickly, right? So it may not be the top price that you're going to get for it, but it doesn't matter. The fact that you consecrated it, it now has a holiness to it until it's been redeemed, right? That's what we just learned here. That makes sense? Clear? It's an unusual concept because we don't have something now that you're going to consecrate. You just take your money, you give tzedakah. You're not consecrating it. The only close thing that we have to it is that when we make a pledge. But the pledge doesn't make something specific consecrated. It just means a pledge that I'm going to give, right? But there's not an object, not your money. If you would say, okay, I'm giving this money to tzedakah, so then that money has to be given, right? But I'm giving money, so nothing's consecrated. Just you will have a vow that you've taken, right, or a pledge that you've made, and then you have to give, right? Okay, number 2. Any of the article consecrated for the improvement of the temple and those entities consecrated to the altar for which the prohibition against Me'ilah applies may be combined together to reach a minimum measure required for Me'ilah. If one derives a pruta's worth of benefit from all of them, it violates prohibition against Me'ilah. Like everything, actually, it'll be it was today's Tanya. This ties in with today's Tanya, but we'll have it tomorrow. Right? Gvura means contraction, right? And therefore, every mitzvah is expressed in the physical, right? It's not just a spiritual, lofty idea, but it has to be expressed in them because it's not just God's kindness, but it has to come and express itself in Gvura, and therefore in the physical. We'll see tomorrow the extension of this is what we're learning over here. This, for you to biblically, fall under the prohibition and be liable for paying back and paying a fifth over and paying and bringing a guilt offering, right? What is it? What do you have to do? A certain amount. In other words, it has to be a pruta's worth, a dime, let's say. If you only used a nickel's worth, let's say, of the object, of the dung, then it wouldn't be a biblical prohibition, right? So the question is, what's a dime's worth? What if you took a little from here and a little from there? So they come together. You can add it together to make a dime's worth. Or a pruta is the minimum amount, right? Everything has a minimum amount, sometimes a maximum amount also, right? Depends, what the mitzvah is. The maximum amount. Well, this sukkah has a maximum amount of, it can only be 20 amas salt because the mitzvah is in the schach, and therefore if it's beyond that, your eyes won't see it. And it's, as the verse says, in order that you should know, you should be aware of God, right? So if it's too high, the roof, the schach, then you're not going to be aware. So, for example, right? Okay, number 3, the following laws apply. If one partook of consecrated food and fed a colleague or derive benefit from a consecrated object and cause a colleague to benefit. His eating and his colleagues' eating, or his colleagues' eating and his benefit are all combined to make one liable for me'ila. If some benefit worth of the pruta is reached, it violates prohibition against me'ila. Well, that's interesting. You partook, you only took a little bit. You took a little bite that's worth 2 cents, right? Right? But then you fed your friend the same thing that was consecrated. Together that made 10 cents. Whatever the pruta is today, right? Made the 10 cent, quarter, $1, whatever it is, right? The minimum amount, right? Because so what's the nuance over here? You would think that it's only something that I did. I could now double up with someone else if I ate less. But if I ate and I fed someone else, I'm doing both acts, even though you're the one who benefited from it, I would be liable. Because the two do come together as a combination. Is that clear? Yeah, you got it? Amazing. I would love to continue, but I have another obligation.